Well, has it come up on Twitter?
No. I'm refreshing.
Okay.
I've traded
Sports. Yeah, there's supposed to be a fancy intro video being played right now, folks, but that has not worked at all. Let's just say that it could play at any second. It could play at any second right now, and I'm sorry if it does. But I guess we'll just go with the flow and scrap the intro, and we'll go with what we got right now. So welcome along, everyone. Sorry about that failed start. But yeah, we're live. As you can see, I'm here with our main man, Neel Shah, Pro Sports Bettor, Trademate user. Put any other good titles you got for yourself, mate?
I don't know. What kind of language can I use on this? You can ask my wife.
Stallion? No, it's good to have you along, mate. Obviously, we've had lots of people contacting us, and you get a million comments on every YouTube video that you've been putting up about your progress with Trademate so far, and you've obviously been very successful and implemented a few good strategies there. So everyone's flooding in now to ask lots of questions about your strategies, what you've been doing, and I guess what's been working with you for Trademate. So I guess that's what we'll get to first. Kind of you can give some kind of background into. I mean, you've obviously done 3 videos already. Give us a bit of background as to how you've been going in your last month. You've had a bit more profit, and then maybe towards the end or throughout, we can answer anyone's questions that they got coming through. And so maybe you just want to start us off, or maybe you want to talk about something to do with Trademate. I don't know. How do you want to start us off, mate?
I mean, I can kind of go through sort of how I've been doing lately. Did you want me to make a kind of? I can put it up on the screen so no one thinks it's a scam or I'm lying or anything. I can kind of show you at the moment how things stand. So I don't know if Alex, you can see my screen here.
Yeah, I'll just maximize that so it gets our 2 ugly faces out of it.
So for context, for anyone who hasn't watched the videos I've done already, so I started in July, and so it's been a good few months now. So I've done over about 5,000 trades, about 12.5K in profit. There's still some bets open for today. I haven't been particularly busy this weekend. But pretty much it's been going well. Sort of 200% growth on the bank so far. I'm pretty happy with that. It hasn't been smooth sailing. So you can kind of see, if I show you the graph, it's kind of been sort of static for a while. I had a nice jump, a few weeks ago, and it's gone up and down, but that's par for the course. That's a variance, all of that kind of stuff. But basically, this is where it is at the moment, and it's gone well. I've had kind of the rubber to green. I got off to a good start, built up some momentum, and I'm just plugging away really. So
No, what I was going to say, mate, is if you just go back to your graph, sorry.
Oh, yeah, sure, yeah.
Just bring that up again. I'm trying to figure it out so we can get our faces in there whilst having your screen as the main thing. But, one day we'll figure that out. Here we go. There we go. All right. So I was going to say, like, your profit line is it's kind of trending upwards, which is nice. But I think what people might not see there's actually some pretty crazy dips. They might not look too crazy. If you step back and take a look, they don't look that crazy. But if you look at the numbers there, you can kind of see that at one point, about halfway through the graph at 2,500 trades from the naked eye, you're at 11.5K profit, and then you dip down to 8K. Is that about right?
Yeah. So what kind of peak here? From memory, it was about 11K, and then went down, quite a bit to around 8.5.
So that's pretty rough.
And that was one weekend. That was one day. I'm pretty sure that was like across one Saturday or Sunday. So, that was like, 1,500 quid lost in a day, which is, it's frustrating. So, these are things, you've got to be able to deal with as well. I'm not going to hide that. This is not about kind of green screening constantly. I think what people might notice in the beginning, I think, and I've seen, on the Facebook forums, a couple of posts by people where, again, if you've got a kind of smaller sample of trades in the beginning, the graph is kind of up and down, and there's a lot more movement because there's a much smaller sample size. So the more trades you kind of do, the theory is at least, it kind of gets steadier. So and I fully admit, I was probably quite fortunate in the beginning. I got off to a good run and built that momentum, and so generally, built up to that point where I'm still kind of ahead of the EV. But you can see the EV, my profit eventually they're gonna, they might meet. They'll get much closer together. Just kind of hasn't happened yet. So
yeah. No, for sure, mate. I was going to try and share my screen, but I don't think that's going to work today for some reason. Just to give everyone a bit of comparison, because I recently restarted my Trademate account just because everything was so confusing with withdrawals and deposits, and it was just getting a mess. So I just had to restart and try again. But I'm only at 440 trades, and I'd love to be able to show you guys my graph in comparison, because it's just, it's an absolute mess. It's all over the place after 440 trades. But I'll see if I can get that up. But in the meantime, we've got a question here from Enoch Mensa. He says, how do you go about your research to pick games? So this is a bit of a volleyball question for you, mate. You can easily lob this one back over.
No, it's fine. I mean, because I think Enoch, if that's your name, because what I do is I also trade, and I also do other kind of betting related things. So I do lots of research myself, and I kind of focus on football and tennis. Like regards to Trademate, the beauty of it is that you don't have to do any research. You just have to have the the bookmaker accounts. You kind of set your filters, set your presets, and away you go. So you don't have to have an opinion on the game. You don't have to try and figure out what's going to happen. I would say the research that you need to do for Trademate would be, spend a bit of time doing some analysis on your trades. If you've done 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 trades, I've been a bit lazy this weekend. I haven't done it, but at some point I'm going to go through and just look through different settings. How many hours before kickoff, what kind of markets you seem to having more success in, which ones are not going so well. With Trademate, you don't have to do that research. Occasionally there might be a bet. I mean, there are times where there's games where I'm trading separately, or I have an opinion on that game, or I have a kind of bet that's away from the Trademate platform, but it's kind of flagged up on my Trademate as well. But I treat that separately, because I want to just kind of trust in the system, trust in the edge that I have on Trademate. Because it's it's a law of large numbers. Eventually, all those trades, if you're getting an edge continually, you're going to make money on it, regardless of whether your opinion is you kind of look at, because sometimes you might look at a game and you think, okay, Trademate's recommending I do this. You're not so sure, but I think if you overanalyze it to that extent, you're just going to cherry pick losers, and you're going to avoid winners just because you're again projecting your own bias into the process. And I think that's what I love about Trademate, is it's quite different to the other things I'm doing, because it doesn't require that analysis, and you can be quite detached from it. And I think that's important. Maybe I think especially for me, I can be kind of a little bit emotional, a little bit volatile, so it kind of helps to regulate that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can't. It's all about numbers, isn't it? You can't. The only time I ever don't take a bet is if something against Arsenal comes up, or just because I want to be able to watch the Arsenal game and want to be able to support them and stuff. You know what I mean? I don't want to. I don't want my betting to take over something that I really enjoy in my life, and that's watching Arsenal get a rare win every now and then. So, and then maybe every now and then I'll see a trade come up for Manchester United, and I'll be like, "Fuck, now I'm not supporting Manchester United," because there's nothing gets me happier than when they lose. We've got a question here. Well, Jazz Rise, just let us know when you want questions, mate. Just fire away.
If it's Jazz who I've spoken to on LinkedIn, I don't know if it's the same Jazz.
Oh, right.
I think Andy had a question. I can see one.
Yeah, Andy's got a question. But yeah, I was just going to say, Jazz, mate, or anyone listening, just send through your questions and we'll get to them, as soon as you send them through, and we'll just kind of mix in questions with going through Neel's stuff. So Andy says, great success, mate. Really enjoyed watching your progress. How are you defining your max bet? We'll start with that.
Yeah, that's a really good question, because obviously it depends on your bankroll. So I would say I've got to. I mean, you can see what the bankroll is, but you get to a stage with some of the soft bookmakers where you can't get the max stake. If I had one mental one today, I can't remember the teams, but I think Trademate was recommending I put $1.5 grand on this. I think it was at odds of like 1.38 or something, and I just thought, that's not going to happen. But but you have to use your judgment. So again,
have you not defined a max bet within Trademate?
I haven't. No, I mean, for me, I'm just going to set the edges. I've got my bankroll there. I kind of look at the odds, what it's kind of suggesting to me. Sometimes let's say it might suggest a bet to me of like, let's say, I don't know, 250, just as an example. But on that particular game, the bookmaker will only give me like 100, or 40. It depends on what the league is. So then, I have to kind of take the max limit and just kind of do it that way. It's not the most efficient way to do it. Ideally, because again, you don't want to be overstaking in some situations. In some situations, it's more harmful for you to understake as well. Like, I think a lot of people don't think of that. But, if you've got an edge, and that's, why the Kelly staking is so useful, that you do need to kind of maximize it as much as you can. So, it really depends. I'm not using the sharps as much because I want to try and get there organically. Get the kind of recommended bankroll first, but I dabble with them every now and again. So obviously on some markets you can have that limit. The other thing is there's a psychological barrier. So for me, I mean that stake size has gone up, but I think with everyone here, everyone has a sort of a stake size where you start getting a little bit nervous, or you're like, and or you might get a bit frustrated seeing that one lose. So I think that's also in mind. So sometimes I do have the stake limit, but I don't kind of go all the way, and I try and round up the stakes as well. If it's not a limited account, I always round up the stakes just so it prolongs it a little bit longer. It doesn't look too suspicious, or not even that it looks suspicious, because I think if you give an exact stake, it looks like you might be trying to arb the position. So I think a lot of bookies are kind of more hot on that, and they'll think that you're trying to arb them, and just they'll get annoyed with that, really. So it's a good question. It's and I think different people have different ways of doing it. I don't know, Alex, I mean, what's your thoughts on it?
Well, I mean, I've always had a max bet actual size. It's always been somewhere between 1% and 2% of my overall bankroll. I think at the moment it's 1%. So I mean, the hard thing is that you just don't want to have such a big bet that it just affects everything that you've done. I mean, I know that at the end of the day, the bigger the bet, the more EV you're going to get, but one bet in itself can just produce so much random results. So I guess as a whole, like, we normally recommend people have a max bet of 1 to 2% of their overall bankroll, just so you don't end up, staking something like 10% of your bankroll on one bet and hoping it all works out, because I guess this is just all about the long term and accumulating little bits of value over and over and stuff like that. So, I mean, if you're not going to set a max bet size, you just have to be smart, don't you? You have to make sure that the highest bet that you go with isn't ridiculous, and it isn't something that's outside your I don't know how to say it, like psychological capacity or whatever, emotional capacity to be able to deal with that loss. So yeah, I mean, it's up to you, mate. I mean, what's the like max percentage of max bet that you've ever placed, do you think, with Trademate?
Probably maybe about 300 pounds, I think.
And what's your overall bankroll at the moment?
I think it's about, there's some bets in play, but I think it's about 17k all, in total. But like, let's say in the beginning, I wouldn't have placed a bet of 300.
Yeah,
I mean, I would probably anything more than 100, 150. But what you find is that the kind of the more you go into it, and if you're having success and your bankroll is growing, you don't notice the change. It's kind of gradual. So eventually, obviously, I'm not recommending doing that at the beginning, and it all depends on your risk tolerance. But if you've got 50 grand in your bankroll, but you don't feel comfortable betting more than 100 on a single event, your progress might be kind of, well, not slow, but it's slower than it could be. You're kind of in my opinion, giving away a bit of profit, but it's a kind of balancing act. I think it is important you have a psychological barrier. Yes, fine, in theory you can get more EV, but there's so much variance that again, what are you comfortable with? I think like 1% to 2% is a good kind of range. I probably would say, even if there was a really, really good bet I was really confident on, that was great value, great EV, I probably still wouldn't go more than 3% myself. But some people, they put more in. So it really depends.
You there still, mate? Sorry. Hello. Are you there, mate?
Yeah, I'm here, yeah.
Oh, sorry, mate. I just didn't hear you for a second. Yeah, sorry. Were you still saying something, or are you finished?
No, I'm done. I'm done rambling.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, mate. I lost you there. Well, we can answer the second part of Andy's question, and he said, "Is there a point where you stop increasing your max bet as limits on soft books stop you?"
Yeah. So like I mentioned, it's just whatever you can get down, really. So there's creative ways around it as well. So you can take Unibet as an example, because they share the same odds as 32 Red, Mr. Green. I think there's like 21, 888. So they're all pretty much sharing the same odds. I think 21 sometimes lags behind a little bit. So if you can't get your max stake on at one of them, if you've got accounts with all five and you're not limited, then you could divide it across 2 or 3. So there's creative ways around it. You can, I mean, it might not always happen, but you can offer that price up on the Betfair exchange. You can go on odds portal and have a look, other bookies. And there's lots of edges for one bookie on Trademate that are across different bookmakers. So again, if you've got plenty of accounts, then you can try and sort of divide your stake across a few, or that same bet again 2 or 3 times. So there's ways around it, definitely.
That's interesting. So if there's a time where, let's just say, you want to put $100 on Liverpool to beat Leicester at Bet365, and they only allow you to have $20 on it or something like that, do you then? So you sometimes then take that bet over to the exchange, and I assume lay Leicester at whatever the price is that Trademate's saying you should get on?
Well, yeah, we'll offer up the same price. I mean, it doesn't happen that often. I haven't tried it that much, so I'm sure someone will correct me on this if it does work in the long term, but obviously you have to factor in the commission rate. So if you're in Australia, you're going to have a hard time.
Of course, yeah.
Or Germany, I think they have a 5% tax as well. But let's say on most Betfair accounts now in the UK, if you switch to the basic plan, it's 2%. So or also not even Betfair. Use a different exchange, use S Markets or Matchbook or something. If you can. So that's one possible solution. Or go on Odds Portal. There's lots of there's some bookmakers that aren't necessarily on the Trademate feed, but you can use the information from Trademate as well. It's not just blindly betting everything on Trademate. Use Trademate as a tool. To kind of to learn these kind of price movements as well.
Yeah, and you're my Just Rise just sent through. Yeah, so he said, yeah, I've connected with Neel on LinkedIn. He's been a great bloke to me. He's did a bit of paper trialing of Trademate. Blah blah blah. Made a nice little £500 profit.
Nice.
So he's confident the model works, which is great. And yeah, he said the problem in real life is that Trademate actually works. So the problem is the bookmaker restrictions. He says, I have most accounts restricted. My question is how I get around that. And also, how does the next step to Pro, or Trademate Pros, which is where you get access to the betting exchanges and the Asian bookies or the sharp bookies. How does that work? I mean, we can both give you some good background as to how Trademate Pro works. On the whole, though, in terms of like getting your accounts not keeping them away from being limited or restricted. I mean, there's so many little things you can do, Neel. Is there I can send through this article that we have on the Trademate blog of all the things that we use to try and stay under the radar. But is there one or two things that you think have been really effective?
Well, to prevent restrictions or once you're restricted.
Yeah.
So I guess there's a few things. So to prevent restrictions, there's you can do things to kind of prime your account. At the end of the day, if you're going to be making money, you're going to be profitable. The bookmakers, whatever your opinion of them is, that they're a business at the end of the day. They can turn away your custom, so they're going to restrict you eventually. But you can prolong it. If you've been a gambler for a long time and you've had these accounts for a while, you will get longer because you've already been profiled. Maybe if your account is in a loss, or then you're going to get longer to have a run at this. If you're opening a fresh account and just kind of hammering it with Trademate value bets all day long, you might not get as long. Some bookmakers give you a bit more time. Some I don't know if I can name names. I won't name names because who knows in the future. Might come back to haunt me, but there's a few where you just get a day. You're lucky if you get a day. I've had one account. I managed to get 4 bets.
It's absolutely ludicrous.
It was ridiculous. So what you can do is prime your account. So what I mean by that, there's different things. So you do a few stupid bets, but just that do it at time. You could do it maybe with lockdown. This isn't so relevant, but things like a random accumulator at 11 o'clock at night when they're probably thinking you're just pissed out of your head. Just betting on all the underdogs on the Saturday games or something. Over 7 goals in this game or that game. Bets that are no value. That's one way you can do it. That's an extreme way, but you can actually be quite, you can be smarter with your accumulators. So again, look at something that might be value, do some bet builders, read up, like George Gamble has some great tips, on cards and card markets. Follow his advice. It's free, and he's always a regular guest. So have a listen to, some of the stuff that he suggests. just bet on some kind of 50-50 chances. You are throwing away a little bit of money. Don't go crazy with the stakes, but things like coin toss in cricket, bet on the coin toss. Open up the casino, do some spins on the casino. If you have like a nice little win early on in the casino, just kind of grind down your balance a little bit. Have a kind of loss limit. For me, I would say, let's say I'm prepared to lose like 10% of my initial bankroll on a new account, just on sort of just pissing around. And yeah, so try and do a few of those things. If you've got the time and the patience, I don't personally, but you want to be doing this kind of stuff for a few weeks. So, just do silly bets, just do fun bets, just do things in play, cash out for a loss, or cash out for a profit. Even cashing out the bookmakers, you're giving away so much margin back to them. You're losing EV by doing it. So if they see this kind of behavior from you, it will prolong your account. It will make you won't appear to be a value seeker. So they have teams at all these bookmakers who are employed to look out for this kind of thing. So that will help you. But ultimately, they are going to. You have to be prepared. So the best advice I would say to anyone is to. I just seen a comment from Mark. Yeah, thanks,
Yeah.
Mark. The best thing I would say is work on your people skills. Make new friends. I'm going to be quite honest and transparent about this. I've lost count of how many accounts I've had restricted from Trademate and from other things as well. So again, ask people you trust, friends and family. If they can help you, if you can run accounts with them. That brings other logistical issues you need to think about, in terms of your IP address and all the kind of technical side of things. But if you get to that point, that's something you can do. So you can kind of keep this going. Like I said, there's clones of every bookmaker. So okay, you're restricted at Unibet, then use 32 Red, use Mr. Green, use 888 Sport. If you're restricted at Sporting Bet, use 10 Bet, use I'm finding clone sites all the time. So, there's just tons out there, and there's some that they might not be on a list online, but you might find actually their odds are pretty similar. So, like company like Gvans, who provide odds like the goal scorer markets for different companies.
Yeah.
There are other companies, who would provide these, and they're with these recreational soft books, again, they're from what I'm seeing, they're kind of reducing their trading teams in a lot of markets, and they're buying in these services. It's cheaper for them because most of their targeted customers are recreational and they're not really looking for value, and that's also why you get shut down so quickly. So yeah, actually, I've just seen Jazz's comment as well. That would be great, actually. Feel free to to contribute as well. I know Jazz is a smart guy. He does a lot of stuff on the racing. So yeah, that's one thing. So prolonging your accounts is one thing. Once you do get restricted, again, you ask around. Be proactive. Plan ahead. If always have someone else. If you can get an account from someone else, ask your partner. Sign up your dog. That might not work these days. Maybe before you could, but be kind of creative with that. Even with limited accounts, that's something maybe for the next video I can show you. I might just do one weekend, where I only use restricted accounts, because even on those you can get decent limits. So I think there was one Saturday where I was able to get down about £500-600 on a restricted account, and ended up with a few hundred profit in the end. So they are worth doing. So bookmaker, it depends on how much you value your time or what your hourly rate is. I'm not going to be doing it for £2 stakes, but 20, 30, they all add up. So it's not the end of your journey, even if you do have restricted accounts. If you've got, like I mentioned before, those 5 Unibet clones, you can get a sizable stake. Eventually you might get restricted to 0, but you'll have a good run at it before then. So I would say don't let that put you off. It will happen eventually, but there's creative ways around it, and you can still use those accounts for particular kinds of bets, the recommended league. So I would say that's one good piece of advice that will save you a bit of time. If you've got a restricted account, change your preset, put it on recommended leagues only, and you're going to get higher limits on those restricted accounts. And those are the ones I focus on. I kind of put that preset on and just kind of fire away.
Yeah, no, that's something I've noticed also. I mean, I have one bookmaker who, I traded with for one day, limited me straight away after one day, and from now on, I've just been betting recommended leagues for you with them, and they've, I'd probably say 75% of the time they take my full stake. So, okay. No, it's a really good point. Is there something that you've tried or something that's worked for you in terms of when you have a restricted account? Is there any way to get it back to non-restricted, if you get what I mean?
It's funny you said that, actually. I think someone posted something on the Facebook group the other day about GDPR. Did you see that?
Yeah, I haven't read it yet, though.
I had a quick read of that. Sorry, whoever that is, if you're in here today, feel free to get the plaudits. But I haven't tried that, but that's something that's quite a good idea. So basically, what it was saying is, you request the bookie to close your account, and remove all your data. So kind of leave, maybe leave it a week or two, and then reopen your account. In theory, under this legislation, they shouldn't have all your information anyway. So, they can't cross-reference your... I mean, obviously, one thing is check that you close your accounts with every member of that group. So, like the Unibet clones or, Sporting, or whoever. Or if you've got Betfair and Paddy Power account, make sure you close both of them. Thank you, Sebastian, on the Unibet blog. So, close them first, then try that again. That's the theory. I'd like to see, if anyone has genuinely done that, because I would presume they would, I don't know, have some kind of record of your IP address, which might not be included in the GDPR data. Maybe someone who has more legal knowledge will know, but it's worth a try. There's also a little trick on Sky Bet. I don't want to annoy people by not saying it, but I don't want it to become a kind of wide knowledge necessarily. All I'll say is, if you look at some of the sort of specials and requester bets on a restricted account, if you use that facility, there is a way to get your account back to some kind of reasonable working order. At least in the past with Sky Bet, I've had the account restricted and I've left it for a few months, not touched it, come back to it, and the stakes have gone up a bit. So yeah, there's a few things. There's always stuff, have a look online, have a look, the people have lots of interesting ideas on this kind of thing. I'm sure there's plenty of methods I haven't used or considered as well. So, feel free to share those too.
Yeah, I mean, my only experience is that I had a bookmaker that I could use in Norway, and they'd completely limited me. And so what I did when I moved back to Australia was so I could use the same bookmaker, just in they were allowed in Australia too. So I closed down that account, and I opened up a new account in Australia, but they restricted me after one day. So they do let me bet on recommended leagues and some big leagues, but mostly it's restricted. So I don't know. So it's 100% worth trying out, like you said before. Sorry, we've had just a massive bank of questions come through while we've been babbling along. So to finish off Jas Rye's question, he says, how does the next step to Trademate Pro Asian markets work? What I'll do right now is I've just posted an article through, mate, into the live chat, and I mean, we can sit here and discuss it, but I honestly think that's the best thing to go through and have a look at in terms of understanding how Trademate Pro works and how you can best utilize it. I think overall, I don't know how much you've done, mate, but we have a definite edge with SBO and Daffabet. But the problem is that they are now limiting customers, maybe not to the extent as a normal soft bookie, but they're certainly not letting you, get down as much money as, say Pinnacle or something like that. So that's the problem there. And then with the betting exchanges, we have no certified edge. We can't confidently say that we have an edge. And I would say that's mostly down to commission rates. So depending where you are in the world, from Australia, on some sports, there's a 10% commission rate, which is just incredible.
What I'll add to that, Alex, on that point about the exchange, and this is something I'm going to be experimenting with more in the new year, is because the benchmark is normally Pinnacle, so it's kind of compared against Pinnacle. What happens with, this is something I'm dabbling with on pre-match trading on football, is the prices on the exchange generally come in line with Pinnacle. So what you might notice is that you might be able to kind of scalp them and green up. So maybe you might not necessarily record those results on your Trademate feed and don't let the bets run, but you still might be able to find useful edges, just by scalping them, just by looking at what the price movements could be. But yeah, again, I think with that, you do need to have that kind of knowledge. You can't just blindly bet into it. I think that's something, Alex, you've mentioned before as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. And yeah, so I don't want to spend lots of time talking about Trademate Pro, because I just think that article will sum it up way better than what we can. I think just overall, Trademate Pro is a tool. It's not, with Trademate Call, I can 100% sit here, and also obviously Neel can, and say we have an edge there over, I think it's like 3.5 million trades. Like it's 100% there is an edge there. With Trademate Pro, you need to come in one. You need a way bigger bankroll, at least 20K, 20,000 pounds, 20,000 euros, something like that. And secondly, you need to be smart. You need to understand betting. You can't just, literally, Neel, if you were my friend, well, you are my friend, of course, mate, but if you were just my random friend that I just said, look, I've been using this software, Trademate Sports, you should give it a go, mate, and you'll make some money with sports betting. I could just show you the software. I wouldn't have to explain really anything to you about betting, because basically Trademate does all the work for you, and you can make a profit not knowing really a thing about betting. You just need to learn how to use Trademate, look at a bet, and then learn how to place a bet at a bookmaker. Whereas with Trademate Pro, you really do need to understand betting markets. You need to have years of experience, I would say. And understand how it works, because you're not going to be able to beat a Pinnacle if this is your first day on the job. That's just absolutely ludicrous. That's like saying that my first day playing football, I can go play a game for Arsenal. Like it's a massive learning curve.
To be honest, you couldn't do much worse than they did today, though.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll try and get through these questions, because there's a lot banking up now. So your mate Mark Cooper says, nice haircut, Neel. And he also asks, how often do you utilize the analytics tool? And for those who don't know what the analytics tool is, it just allows you to, for one, take a deeper analysis of your own trades within Trademate, so which would be most of the time, a reasonably small sample size. And also only to do with your trades, but you can also use the big data tool, which looks at every trade that customers have ever placed with Trademate. So, go ahead, mate.
Yeah. So, good question, Mark. So I, to be honest, I don't use it enough, but I will start using it more. So one of the things I did, there was an article I wrote recently about a kind of analysis of football trades and how Trademate's performing on football. And I think there was a question about COVID on there, so maybe we can kind of segue to that afterwards. So it was actually really insightful just to see what particular trades. So, for example, on handicap markets, there seems to be a kind of definite edge, and kind of higher than I would have expected. And also, again, it's a good way to kind of test theories, because part of what I love about what I'm doing now and with betting and everything else is, there's a lot of research you can do. You're kind of, if you take a scientific approach to what you're doing, you have a hypothesis, you test it, you try and improve and refine on your model. You can blindly bet into Trademate Pro, and you will make money. If you haven't got the time to go into the analytics, that's okay. With myself, I struggle to put the time aside to really kind of review it. But if you are serious about kind of taking it to the next level, if you want to accelerate your profits, minimize your losses, that's what you can do. Rather than look at individual trades in your feeds, watch them as they're happening, it's not really going to benefit you much. But take 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 trades and go through by sport. Go through 3 hours before kickoff, 6 hours, 12 hours. Is there a difference there? Look at the odds ranges you're doing, because I know I've seen some comments about. Again, some people aren't comfortable taking odds over, 2.5, for example. Are you costing yourself money by doing that? Should you be expanding your odds range? So these are things. So it all depends on how you're using the tool, but you can kind of come up with some hypotheses and think, okay, am I using it as efficiently as I can? And it doesn't have to take that long. I mean, running all those tools for the article that I did, that was probably like, half an hour, 45 minutes to actually get, the data. So you can just spend 10 minutes at the end of the day, or, just at some point while you're kind of doing all your trade mates, putting all the bets down, just spend 10 minutes just having a look through. But it's a balancing act. Don't do it every day, or you might go crazy. You don't have to do it excessively, because that might actually affect your judgment. But I would say, something I do, end of the month, I kind of review all my betting and trading activity and kind of analyze things. Where did I go wrong? What can I improve on? What went right? If you can do that with Trademate quite easily, and it will be beneficial. Even just doing that for 10, 15 minutes a month.
Yeah.
My fan club is out full force. Cheers.
I haven't scrolled down yet to see the new comments. I'm just too busy trying to figure out which ones we haven't answered yet.
There was one about COVID.
Yeah, let me just.
There's some more. Sorry, I don't want to jump.
Yeah, so Andy. Well, we can answer this one quickly. Flying Guru. So the clones of Unibet. Leo Vegas, 888 Sport, Mr. Green, 32 Red. Have I missed any?
AAA.
Yeah.
There might even be one or two others that are not official clones but might share the same feed. But yeah, so basically, if you sign up to all of those, then you should have a good run.
And yeah, those that Canby, who own all those bookmakers, they offer quite a lot of value bets, so they're good ones to have clones of. All right, what else have we got? From Andy Nurse, are your results just based on your accounts, or does it include friends? Andy says, I have 22 friends. Very precise number, mate. Well done. That's a lot of friends, mate. I have 22 friends, so trying to gauge what turnover is possible for one set.
That's a good question, Andy. You're coming out with the hard questions today. It's hard to put a figure on turnover because it depends on what bookmaker. All I can share is just personal experience, because it will vary by person to person. But there's some bookies. Alex, can I name individual bookmakers, or would rather I just keep it general?
I probably just don't name the ones that give you the most trades. That's probably. Just don't say which ones give lots of trades. You can name the bookmakers, just don't say which ones give you what amount of trades. Yeah.
Okay. So there's there's one bookmaker. It's named after a 26-mile race. So yeah, they're you don't get much time with them, from my experience. So again, value betting with them is tricky. So there's a couple of them where you've got to be smart with them. So I would advise if you're using a friend's account. So there's one bookmaker. They have a lot of edges on tennis, not that many on other sports. So what I've done is kind of save my time and signed up an account or asked a friend to sort out an account for me, and only used it during a Grand Slam, or during a busy tennis week where there's 2 or 3 tournaments, and used it on the Sunday or the Monday, the first day, because pretty much you only get a day or two. So if I'm going to do it, I need to kind of hammer them quickly, get 20 or 30 bets in before they get sick of me. So that's only for a few of them. There are some bookmakers where they give you a fair run, credit where credit's due. Obviously, you're making money out of them. What do you expect? But with some of them, they give you a fair run of things. But obviously, you need to, if you're using friends' accounts, then you need to remember that they profile accounts and they will link you back to them. So use your phone data, use a different connection. If you go to an internet cafe, or there's ways around it without going into too much detail. This is stuff you can kind of look at online, but it's all about kind of your IP address. If you're kind of tech savvy, there's things you can do that won't cost as much, but there's kind of cost-effective ways to do it, and fairly straightforward as well. So do that, because if you do start using friends' accounts on your own, you're going to get restricted really quickly, and you want to try and give yourself a fair crack. So turnover-wise, sorry, I can't give an average or direct answer. It really depends on the bookmaker, on your stake sizing. If you hit like 3 winners in a row on your first, on your friend's account, and they're all at value, and they've all beaten the closing line, then you might get restricted straight away. If variance is kind of unlucky, and you lose 5 or 6, then you might get a couple of weeks out of them, because they might be a little bit lazy, look at the bets coming through, think, oh yeah, this is a losing customer, and you might get ignored and off the radar. But it all depends. I've had a day with the same bookmaker. I've had a month with the same bookmaker. It really depends, and it's hard to say. You just have to kind of see. So I would say my advice is, if you're kind of doing this with your friends and giving them a little bit of cash to do this, don't make any kind of grand promises. So anything you do for them is a bonus, and it's nice, but just kind of be wary of that.
Yep. And shout out to Flying Guru, mate. He said Arsenal is shit. So thanks for that, mate. And yeah, there was a question through, like you said, about COVID. So what I did is I posted that article that you wrote in the comments. So if people want to see how we've been going pre and post COVID, you can have a quick look at that. It's because the big data tool only shows 10,000 trades max. It's obviously not encompassing every trade that has been placed, especially pre-COVID. I mean, pre-COVID, we probably placed 3 million bets. So there's a sample size of the last 10,000 of them. Obviously a big sample size, but not accurate considering it's whatever the maths is, 10,000 out of 3 million bets. So there's that you can have a look at. And the other thing I wanted to say to everyone is, if you could just hit the like button on the on the live stream, give Trademate and give Neel a bit of love, because you all love these videos. So give it a like, and if you haven't subscribed already, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And one of the things I forgot to say before, and it was on this question from Mark Cooper about the analytics tool, is that it should be implemented by now, but hopefully in the next week or two, we'll have an ability for you guys to export your trades. So you can not only export all the trades that you've done onto a spreadsheet and have a look at the closing line that you got there, or the edge you got, whatever, or the odds, everything, but you'll also be able to go into the big data tool or the analytics tool also and export any data there. So, if you're interested in what the last 10,000 football trades of Trademate have looked like, you could export that now. And yeah, just explore whatever you want, really. Because I guess sometimes you're not going to be able to see the like certain trades because eventually the max of 10,000 bets gets maxed out. So yeah, you can go in and export any data that you want to have a look at and yeah, play around with that. So hopefully that'll be out soon. I'm just trying to see what else we have. Steve Woods says you should be able to turn over 7 figures with 22 friends. I mean, yeah, are we talking Norwegian kroner or are we talking pounds? That's a massive call. And
yeah. It's, sorry, on that point, that's interesting because I was thinking about this the other day. Like, how long would I be able to turn over $1 million? Because I'm at $250,000 now.
Oh, you're talking turnover. Sorry, I thought.
I think you must be talking turnover because I'm at about $250,000 now, and the thing is, you'll get faster towards that $1 million once you've built that bankroll. So, I think that's definitely achievable. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, I'm sorry about that. I thought he meant profits. I was like, that's a bit of a big claim. But yeah, no, you'd say 22 friends. If your 22 friends are from the UK or from a spot in the world where it's beneficial to use Trademate from, and you have lots of bookies at hand, then yeah, that should be pretty achievable. Yeah, and Jas Rai gave you a shout out, mate. He says find Neel's blogs on his website, very compelling reading. Should check them out. What's your if you want, can you type stuff into the live chat here, or can I only do that?
I've got a little window for private chat, but not. Let me see.
What's your website called? And I can type it in for everyone to go check out. Oh, you've got
mybetterlife.com. I haven't updated that much recently, but hopefully the new year there'll be some useful stuff on there. But yeah, thank you, Jaz. That's very kind of you.
What else have we got here? We've got Neel. It's Gaz looking good, dude. Sounds like a southerner too. I've got no idea what he's on about, mate.
Southern softy.
And he also asked, can you list the ideal accounts to utilize Trademate at its best? I don't want to give that information out here, mate, because there could be bookmakers who would be a bit shocked at what amount of value bets they provide us. But if you want to, you can message us on our customer support. You don't even have to be a customer. You can just message us on our website in the live chat in the bottom right corner, and we can send you the list of bookmakers that give the most value bets.
One thing I'll add to that as well is that might vary depending on what time of day you use the feed. Because I think we've had this conversation as well, that there's certain bookmakers that you haven't been able to find that many with, whereas I've seemed to find quite a few, but because of time differences. So
Betway was one of them. I was like, how is he placing so many bets with Betway?
So one of the things you could do is set up your Telegram alert just for one bookmaker, and maybe do this every day, and just see when they're most active. And I would assume that's when they're opening their lines, or their lines haven't been changed overnight, or something. And then kind of see, because I think depending where you are, and even it seems like sometimes people are in the same place, but seem to get sort of different alerts, or there's a slight delay here or there. But generally there are there's a few that are sort of consistently right, for picking. But that's something definitely to chat to Alex about, or send me a message, and I'm happy to share.
Yeah. And Gaz has also asked, are there different levels of using Trademate subscription-wise? So I think there's 4 different subscriptions you can get. So there's Trademate Nordics, which is it's very cheap. I think it's only €30 a month, but it's priced that low because you can only bet with Norsk Tipping, Svenska Spel, and Dansk Spel. My pronunciation is probably terrible, but it's basically all the government-owned bookies in the Nordic countries. So most people here won't be able to even use them. And then you've got Trademate US, which you can only use US bookies and bet on US sports. So it's just for it's just for US people from the US who can't really utilize the whole software because of the restrictions that they have. Then there's Trademate Core, which is what probably 95% of people use, which is what we're kind of talking about today, which is just every soft bookie, about 100 soft bookies or something like that, all around the world. And then there's Trademate Pro, which is all of the bookies that we support, including the betting exchanges and the Asian bookies, so the sharp bookies. So that gives you a little detail about that. And you can go onto our website, tradematesports.com, and have a look at the pricing and more details about those subscription packages on our website. Gazaman with another question, beginner, intermediate, etc., or is it all in? What would you say, mate, for the Trademate software?
Yeah, I mean, core is, you know, I know even guys would be able to figure it out. Yeah, it's no, honestly, it's really straightforward, and yeah, suitable for beginners. And if you've been betting a while, and even if you haven't placed a bet in your life, I'm pretty sure maybe that could be a video series, Alex. Maybe you can go to like an old people's home, or see how they do 1 month on Trademate. Yeah.
I need new ideas for content, mate. So I'll take that on board, 100%, mate. Yeah, I would agree. I mean, you can be a beginner and use Trademate. Cool.
Easiest tools, like it's so straightforward. You know, there's the odd thing here or there, and that's, I mean, it's not necessarily fair on Trademate to do this, because there's such a backlog of games and things like that. There's the odd thing here or there, like a match that's void, or you know, they're postponed or something like that. So you might have to check, but that, you know, it's very rarely, pretty much 99% of the time. You know, you place your trade, it calculates it all for you, tells you what you should stake, you know, for your maximum edge, and then, you know, all the data is there, so you don't have to do any of the admin. You just place the bets and just record it, and that's it. Yeah.
But yeah, when it comes to Trademate Pro, Gazaman, I would say that you'd have to be pretty experienced, like maybe not a professional, but at least bloody close to it. You have to know your betting pretty well. Steve Woods asks, what's your plan after you have been limited everywhere? Do you use other strategies outside of Trademate?
Yeah, I do. I mean, Steve, if you want to send me a message, I'm happy to kind of go through it. I mean, it's on my blog. It's not like it's kind of private information or anything, but so I trade on the exchange. But trading on the exchange is tough, and really tough, you know, and it's not necessarily, I wouldn't say I'm consistently profitable. I do a lot of research. You know, I wouldn't say I'm terrible as a trader, but it's I find it's much more difficult than placing Trademate trades. You know, there's other things, again, you know, other value betting strategies. I look at US horses. There's kind of edges on US horse racing that I like to look at myself as well. So yeah, I mean, I would say that if you kind of put all your time into Trademate and you've got the accounts, it's a very consistent, steady way, you know, to make your money from betting. If you've got other angles, great. You know, you can you know, look into that as well. I think you know, having this kind of portfolio approach is important. You know, especially if you're not spending that much time on Trademate each week, you know, how you might divide your time with that. But like I mentioned before, even if you've got limited accounts, like you know, I'd be happy to kind of, you know, put my money where my mouth is and do this. But I'm pretty confident that over a month, obviously the profit's not going to be huge, but you could probably still more than cover your subscription fee just using limited accounts, just betting on recommended leagues. If you've got, I don't know, 10 bookies that are limited, you could still make you know, decent income from it. So don't necessarily sort of assume just because you're restricted you can't put any sizable stakes down. It depends on the markets, so you just kind of have to play around with that. I had a account, so I was going to say a name, but I had an account again where, you know, you could put decent limits on corners, you could put decent limits on big leagues on there, particular kinds of bets, and NFL, and so there wasn't really much less than what I would have been staking anyway. So yeah, I wouldn't rule that out. But educate yourself. I can do a shameless plug for my blog, for the Trademate blog. I mean, there's brilliant stuff on the Trademate blog. So many industry experts. So if you just listen to the podcasts every week and have a read of the articles, there'll be something that clicks, something that interests you, and you can investigate a bit further. Every week, pretty much, there's a few things where it's kind of the interesting insights that make me think or reflect. Actually, this is something I could look into, something I could do in the future, or even if it's not something that I could do, it's something other people I know in my kind of betting circles, trading circles, something I could pass on that knowledge to as well. So I would say that, but plan ahead. Don't wait for this to happen to you. Kind of look ahead for what you can do next. Again, ideally, you'd be able to get your bankroll up to a good level, so you could kind of go on to Pro, go on to the sharp books, and you'll have the knowledge from doing this from such a long time that you should make a good run of it.
Yeah, no, great point, mate. I was going to ask, mate, just before we got another question here from Andy, but I was going to ask, mate, if you could just share your screen again. I'd love to just ask you a few questions about some of the stuff you are doing with Trademate that we normally we don't. I wouldn't say we don't recommend. It's more so that we just wouldn't put it out there as a recommendation because it can be construed in multiple ways and taken out of context. So I'll just largen your screen up here, mate. The first thing I wanted to ask you was about your presets. I noticed, I think in a few of your videos, that you trade quite early. Like you're happy to place a bet up to like maybe even 48 hours. I might be completely wrong. 48 hours before the game. Is that wrong or?
Occasionally, I would say maybe 24 hours is my limit now. I did kind of look into this, and but it depends. So for me, maybe the rationale is, for example, let's say on NFL. I mean, I don't know that much about NFL, and if anyone is more knowledgeable can correct me on it. But from listening to different podcasts, different experts, generally the opening lines kind of get battered into shape. So if there's an NFL game, I haven't really watched much NFL myself, but the Thursday night, Friday night football, if you get on those lines earlier in the week, that's where you might be able to find the value, before it shifts. On, let's say, Premier League games, before the money arrives. So if Pinnacle kind of traders are quite sharp and on the ball, and they've got that, and the recreational books are anticipating, punters to kind of back Man United or Liverpool or whatever big team, then you might have an advantage there over the closing line. But yeah, primarily for some bookmakers, it's it's just kind of, again, it's just in terms of my own circumstance. So sorry, so that's up here. Let me get it back again. Because I've got a young daughter. The time zone, we're 3 hours ahead here. Again, because now I'm self-employed. I mean, Trademate does take up time each week, but I'm also a trader. I'm also doing other things, freelance writing. I'm marking some exam papers this week. So the best time for me is in the morning. And what I've noticed is the best time has been in the morning, but it just so happens that there's a lot of bets available to me first thing in the morning, and the value is still there because either they haven't been changed overnight or those lines have just gone up. So I'm at the moment trying to take bets, let's say 12 hours. 12 hours is my cutoff, although I will still look. So even if I've got 24 hours before game time, I mean, maybe I can run this in the analytics. But
what minimum edge are you happy to take on games? Let's just say 12 hours or 24 hours beforehand.
Yeah, so yeah, that's a good question. So yeah, so here basically across all my trades, average time is 9 hours. So across everything I've done, it's let's say so probably within that 12-hour time frame. It depends on the bookmaker. If it's a restricted account, then I am happy to take a 1% edge. A reason for that, and also because I run bots that work on the same principle, is I just need turnover for those accounts. So if I'm only going to get like £5, £6 stakes, if I don't do this every day, I can't. Sometimes I just can't be bothered. But if I can get in 50 bets on a restricted account, 100 bets on that day, I'll grind away a profit as long as it, the edge is there. If it's more than 1%. Ideally, I like to take more than 3%. If it's shorter odds, I'll look at the kind of 2% ones. So anything that's kind of big odds, maybe 4 or above, I'd be a bit reluctant to take a smaller edge on them. But again, it's not a science. What I'm saying in terms of that kind of staking plan. So people have different ways to do it. So it really depends. But you can kind of see. In terms of the actual odds, the odds I've taken generally sort of congregate fairly short. But look, if there's a big odds selection, then I'm happy to take that. If the edge is good, if there's a kind of a decent edge. So it depends on the bookmaker, because some bookmakers you don't get those huge edges, so you just have to just turn over lots of bets with them. Whereas some you might not get as many, but you'll get a massive edge when they do come along. So generally, I found that the closing edge is there for the most part. But yeah, the recommended presets are there for a reason. So if if you are following the Trademate advice, you're going to get less variance. So the thing is, for me, I think you have to think about your risk profile. I'm happy to take on these risks. I mean, I'm not happy to lose. No one likes losing, but I accept it as part of what I'm doing. That if I'm betting at these higher odds all the time, there will be long losing runs, but the value is there. I'm happy to seek the value. Even in my trading, generally, I look for positions where I don't have to trade in and out. I'm just lazy. That's part of this. I'm just lazy. I just like to have a position where if I think something's going to happen, I want to try and follow it through. So again, and there've been plenty. It kind of goes back to the question about COVID as well. You're seeing so many shocks. It's hard to predict. It's really hard, really tough on things like football at the moment to predict what's happening. So you've probably got a good chance of underdogs, going ahead. Some markets are probably quite good for this. So if you're looking at the underdog to win the first half, for example, you don't need them to win the whole game. Maybe they'll, even in football or hockey, they're low-scoring sports. So you just need them maybe just to be 1 goal ahead at half-time, get a lucky goal, and you're halfway there. If you've got that edge already, that's a good chance of something like that coming in. So, use a bit of discretion, have a look and have a think about when you might do that. I would say don't be afraid of those bigger odds. Maybe in the beginning you don't want the variance, and that's understandable. But throw one in there every now and again, even kind of at small odds as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely worth it, I think, in the long run. The other question I had for you was you've been doing accumulators. Now, I know we don't have this in our software. We don't have the ability to log accumulators in the software, which is something we get asked about every now and then, something we should implement. But I think overall right now, there's a couple of reasons. One, I think most people think, or they don't understand that accumulators in general are not a great segment to be betting in. They're not a very profitable thing because you're just multiplying the bookmaker's margin. But with Trademate, it can actually be quite useful, not only just keeping your accounts from being limited because it looks like a dumb play, but also you can multiply the value together. But the other thing is is that if you're multiplying the wrong two bets together, it's actually you actually get more EV from keeping them as singles. So can you explain kind of your strategy when it comes to accumulators? Maybe you've got an example on your screen, I'm not too sure, or like a preset that you use.
I don't have a preset of well, I mean, you could. I mean, let's see. I can kind of show you how you might do it. So, okay, let's say I've got 888 here. So, you know what? Just other bookies are available, but I'll do Bet365 because they probably have quite a few. So let's say I put Bet365. Is my screen up there, Alex? Can you see
Yeah,
it?
mate.
Yeah. So let's say I'll put my odds to 1.5, maximum 1.5. I mean, you could, in theory, you could go lower than 1%. Again, it depends on your risk profile and how many bets you're going to turn over. Because in the short term, maybe you might not be able to. But let's say I'll put it as 0.5%. Again, I'll put it as 12 hours for now. See if anything comes up. Maybe it might not at this time. Oh no, okay, right, here we go. So yeah, so what I would do, instead of putting 400 quid on Titan Barranquilla to win, I would combine these two. So I'd get this Team Cali bet, I'd get this Deportivo Pasto bet, combine the two, multiply them together. I generally try and check as well how much margin the bookmakers, if they are, some bookmakers do, some bookmakers don't, how much margin they'll put on that double. But you can see that I've got two bets here, both with a reasonable edge, so it's 3.5% and 2.5%. So they've got a good edge in themselves. They're low odds, so they've got a good chance of coming in. So there's pretty much, there's a decent chance that this double will actually land. So what you find, I mean, I can show you guys some results. I need to update it. There's been a few more I haven't put in yet, but I haven't done that many so far. But this is my plan for December to do more of these. So I've done, 73 that I've done. The strike rate has been okay. It's in profit. I'm not reading too much into this because the sample's quite small. But the average odds, pretty much around evens. So you kind of, you're not going to get long losing runs doing this. Your profit might build a little bit slowly, but there's an opportunity to do it. Because you can see, look, okay, there's not loads right now, but maybe it's not the best time to look. Maybe in the mornings is a good time, but you can kind of combine them. The other thing you could do, again, you could use, let's say, S Markets has an accumulator feature on there. You could see what odds you might get on there, for example. So there's plenty you can do with the double. I would definitely recommend it as something if you've got restricted accounts as well. This is something you can do generally. You're not going to get huge stakes on them, but it's one way to increase your profits or build up faster bankroll. But obviously the important thing is the accumulate. They have to be at value. Don't just randomly bet on ACCAs. They're the worst kind of bet you can do in general. But the whole principle behind it is if you're using Trademate to find them, then they're value bets. So those, I mean, you could kind of, you can have a bit of fun with it as well. So you could, I don't know, you could do a treble. You could do like a lucky bet, or a kind of a patent Goliath or something, like a huge bet. If you wanted to, that could be one way to prime your account, but it's actually at value. But the bookmaker will just see you just doing a crazy ACCA on a Saturday, and they won't look at it in that way. So, it's definitely possible. I mean, Alex, you had was it one of your guests? I don't know if I'm allowed to name him, but he did a quite famous horse racing bet where he combined loads of big odds horses, didn't he, into one huge accumulator. And
I don't know who you're talking about, mate, to be honest.
Okay. All right, but there's there's people out there,
Yeah, I
horse
think
racing.
yeah. The thing is with the thing that people have to know with accumulators too is I think it has to be in a low odds range, like you just said. I think
Yeah,
once you start going over 150, once you start going into definitely 2 in odds and over, let's just say you've combined two twos together, so that gives you 4. The problem is that you'll have a nice big chunky edge most likely, like you would with any accumulator where you've put 2 value bets together. The difference is that the odds are going to be 4, whereas in the example that you just showed, the odds would be, sometimes I'm placing 2 legs that are like 1.5 or 1.6 in odds. So the problem is when Kelly works out your staking, it takes into account your edge and also your odds, and then you get a percentage of your bankroll on top of that. Once you factor in the odds, though, let's just say it's a 3% edge on 4 in odds, your staking is not going to be as big as it would be if it was 3% edge on 1.6 in odds. So what happens there is that it's obviously a smaller stake, which means less EV. So if you just gone with one bet of 2 in odds and another bet of 2 in odds, there's a chance that you might even be either max betting or something like a decent percentage of your bankroll is going to be put on those 2 bets, which equals more EV. I mean, this is a bit of a confusing concept to maybe some, but basically what I'm trying to say is that if you're going to do it and your goal is to get as much EV as possible out of 1 or 2 bets, then it might be better if you've got anything over 1.5 in odds to single bet them. But if it's below 1.5 in odds, then you could get more EV out of accumulate, like putting the 2 together. Does that make sense to you, mate? At least.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean that's my cutoff point. I would say I generally don't tend to bet anything less than 1.6 and usually 1.7. So yeah, anything less than that, I wouldn't discount it. I'd look at it and see if I can add it to something else and make an acca out of it. Yeah, I think that's the way to do it. I mean, yeah, in theory, everything is value. If you find a bet that's 1.2, what was it, the Floyd Mayweather example? I always come back to it. That was massive value, but again, it's this kind of psychological barrier we're talking about. Do you really want to be putting hundreds of pounds on something where the return is much less than what you're risking? So people have this crossover point of evens. I risk this much, I'll make the same back. But again, anyone who's kind of discounting bets below evens, I would say, definitely to reconsider that. But again, have your kind of range in there. Yeah, but I would agree with what you said, Alex. Definitely, I think that's a good approach. It minimize the variance, and it's a better way to maximize your edge. Definitely.
And you make your accounts. I mean, if you are doing accumulators in general, you make your accounts look dumber. I think that's probably the main use for accumulators. Even if it's a massively negative EV play, it's going to make your account look dumber. And I think it's maybe just put $5 or $10 on it every week or two. Just put a little accumulator in there, and they might think, this guy's not as smart as we thought he was. So yeah, something's definitely worth doing. And then on restrictions, mate, we'll try and start to wrap it up now, guys. So if you've got any questions, start sending them through. It's probably quite late where Neel is right now. Andy Nurse says, is esports worth betting on, or is it a quick road to restrictions?
Yeah, I love betting on esports. Just don't make me watch it. I just I can't watch it. I love video games, but I couldn't think of anything worse than watching someone else play it.
Yeah, you want to play it yourself, don't you?
Exactly, yeah. But I love it. When I see esports come up on my feed, there's a few bookies who are hopeless at pricing this up. The only thing is with esports, you have to bear in mind is there isn't a huge amount of liquidity on the exchange for it. Pinnacle are quite sharp on esports. They do a lot of content on esports. they've got kind of quite experienced traders doing that. So the soft bookies, I think it's a kind of niche interest. They're not as interested. So if you were only betting on esports, on these bookies, you might get flagged up quite quickly. If you're mixing it in with other things, then again, you might kind of avoid detection. Oh, I disappeared. Hold on, see if I can come back.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, but you get some really good edges on there, but the margins are quite high as well. So bear that in mind. But do some analysis on it. Have a look. I think it's a great sport to bet on. I think it's a great sport to have on Trademate as well. I've had quite a bit of joy with esports myself. So 100%. I don't restrict any sports from my betting. The only thing I'm a little bit wary of is ice hockey. From my sample so far, I'm finding that tough, but I'm not going to rule it out being just unlucky variance. So I would say, Andy, that anything that has an edge, anything that's kind of out of line with the sharp bookmakers, and you're quick enough to get on those prices, you're going to make money on it. So whether it's a sport you enjoy or not, it's kind of, to me, it's irrelevant. It's what's the most profitable sport. My most enjoyable sport is football, but that's probably one of the toughest markets to beat. So.
Yeah, no, definitely, mate. We've lost your you lost your beautiful face, mate. But we'll keep going.
Choose my
we had a question come through from a fellow called Adam Bott actually before the live stream, and he said, "How many bookmakers should I have to maximize the profit and not be banned so soon?" I mean, we kind of recommend that you have at least 4 or 5 going at the same time, but the more the better, mate, because if you have 10 to 20 bookmakers, you can just spread your bets across and not absolutely just hammer 1 or 2. And also you can always find the best odds there too, so you're going to be placing the best value bets. Have you got any thoughts on that, mate?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say, I've lost count of how many I have. If you include all the clones as well, it's probably around, 40, 50. I'm not saying you have to have that many. It's just, it depends how many you want to have. The more you have, the more options you have for the bets. But again, it's how much you can deposit in each one, how much money you're willing to have kind of just sat there. It's all personal preference, but at least having them open and ready, that's useful. The more you have, the better it will be. The more edges you'll find. There might be days where you can't find much going on at your favorite bookmaker, or you've been limited. So you want to make use of that time. So then you can kind of shift over and use one of the others. So the more the better. You can't have enough.
Yeah, definitely. And Adam's also asked, is Denmark a good country to be allowed to open accounts? I'm just going through our article here. So from the naked eye, mate, we have about 20 to 30, maybe 20, 25 bookmakers here that you can use from Denmark. So, it's a pretty good place to be able to use Trademate from. I wouldn't say it's the best, but I'd say it's definitely not the worst. Like, there's a lot worse you can do. So, definitely Denmark's a great spot to be betting from using Trademate. I think we have another question come through from Steve Woods, and he said, what are your thoughts on using tipsters? A waste of time or some worth investing in? Seems like some guys are worth following for MMA and smaller sports.
Yeah, it's a good question. I'll try not to give an essay on it because I've got a lot of thoughts on this. I'm not of the opinion that all tipsters are terrible. There are some good tipsters out there, and I've benefited from them in terms of knowledge. The issue I have is you have this paradox where the good tipsters, they're too good in the sense that Let's say like a good racing tipster, I follow one service where, they're in profit. What they advertise as their profit is one thing. What I can achieve in reality is different, because unless you're getting on their prices quickly, you're not going to get anywhere near the price. And that makes a significant difference. It's something maybe I didn't realize when I first started betting or following tipsters and things like that, how much difference shopping around for price makes. I mean, it's basically what, essentially the core of what Trademate does. If you're getting best price, you will make money in the long run. So, again, there are some tipsters where that makes a significant difference. It's less so for things like football. The odds will not, be that different. They won't be hammered in, from time to time. But things like racing, that's where you need to do your research. You need to see how profitable has this tipster been over a few years. Alex did a pod with is it Pete Link, the smart bet owner? If you want a good place that we can sort of verify as reliable, honest, trustworthy, I would go and have a look there on Smart Betting Club. They review all these tipster services. They have a very thorough process. So that anything you sign up to through that website, it's not guaranteed to make you money, but there's none of this kind of dodgy stuff. There's a lot of sort of unscrupulous, dodgy tipsters out there, just these promotional emails that just look just wrong. And you just want to be careful, with what you're doing with those. Ask them questions, before you sign up to anything. Ask these tipster services a question and see, like, if they can't give you a straight answer, just avoid them. Just don't even bother. If they can't provide sort of proofed results for you, they're not worth your time. So this is where something like Smart Betting Club, you kind of learn how to pick out good services. The other thing I find is that I subscribe to too many things, and I'm self-employed. I'm doing this, for a living now. But even then, you just get information overload. So I would also advise, if you are doing something like that, just pick one at a time. No more than a few, and kind of chop and change if you want, but don't subscribe to too many. Even free tipsters, you can get information overload sometimes. And again, going back to Trademate, this is why it's great, because you're not having to, you're placing all these bets, but do you want to read the write-ups? How some people really want to read the reasoning for their bets. For me, for my own ones, if I'm trying to place trades, but most of the time I couldn't care less. I'm just like, okay, what's the bet? Is it value? I trust whoever this person is, or the software that this bet is value, then I'll take it. So it's also a question of time. So people have different opinions on it. I mean, what's your opinion, Alex, on tipsters?
You just I think first and foremost they need to be independently verified. I mean, Pete mentioned to me that there are tipsters out there who just don't know they're a verification website. So there are good tipsters out there that are not verified. They just don't know. But I mean, I think just in general that should be one of your rules. In two, I mean, the sample size for me would have to be pretty big. Like, I'm not going to follow someone that's below 2,000, 3,000 bets, I wouldn't think. I'd want to see the proof in the pudding, because I think Marius puts it really well to me. He said, if you had 10,000 monkeys, let's just, how many tipsters you reckon there are in the world? There's probably at least, 50,000 tipsters in the world?
Yeah, it seems
good or bad. Let's just say there's 50,000 tipsters. You're going to get at least 5, 10 that are that they just get lucky, and they could just tip whatever you want, and they're just going to keep picking winner after winner. That's just basic odds and probability, that kind of stuff. So, I would. You just do your research. Like, there are obviously some good tipsters out there, but like Neel says, then the problem is that you can't get the money down, etc., etc. And they're absolutely no use to you, and you can't get the odds either, because by the time they've tipped it to 5 people or 10 people, whatever, the odds are gone. So I think in general, it's you've just got to do some research, eh? And the good thing about someone like Smart Betting Club, Pete Ling, is that they do a lot of the research for you, which is good. But I still think on top of that, you need to, you need to do research yourself, and you need to be knowledgeable about the limitations of it all and stuff like that. So, yeah, I'm not saying that they're bad, but as a whole, I'd say I'd stay away from. But yeah, you can definitely make money from them. You just need to be bloody smart and don't go in blindly.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, mate. We've got no more questions, and I reckon we're going for about an hour and a half. It's probably about time to wrap up, eh?
Yeah, no, thanks everyone for tuning in. Some good questions there.
Yeah. Before everyone leaves, if you could give the stream a like, that would be tremendous. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, go and check out mybettorlife.com, Neel's blog. Go and start a free week trial of Trademate Sports. I haven't got really much else to say, mate. Is there any concluding thoughts?
Maybe one last thing. I think so. Obviously, it's worked for me. Trademate's worked for me. Not everyone's going to have the same experience in the beginning. So I think it is important to say, look, not to get disheartened if you haven't had the greatest of starts, just to stick with it. It might seem, like you're on this kind of miserable run, but eventually that tide will turn. I think the toughest thing if you want to take your betting seriously, if you want to become professional, is it is a bit of a cliche. It does get talked about a lot, but it is about mindset. And the good thing with Trademate is it removes a lot of the emotion from the process, but you have to kind of be prepared that you might lose in the short term, and you've got to have that patience that eventually stick with the process and it will work. I think that's kind of main thing I want to say. Hopefully, I'm nothing special. I'm just kind of following the process. I'm just grinding away on this, and I've had a bit of success. Is what I'm doing is nothing, unless you're a miserable bastard who has no friends. You'll be able to do this. Even if you get your accounts limited, you'll be able to get friends to help you out. You can have potentially, and then they'll pass their details on to someone else. And even if you don't, even if you don't speak to anyone and it's your own account, you can still do this, even being limited. It's a good second income source or a full-time income source if you put the hours in. I'm not doing Trademate, more than a couple of hours a day. I've got other things I'm doing as well. I've got other commitments, so it's not like you're seeing my results and that's because I'm there doing it 12 hours a day. That's not the case. So it's possible. Just give it a go, see how it goes. Alex is around to help you out. You can send me a message as well. And just best of luck to all of you guys. If this is something you want to do seriously, it'll come good. Yeah, definitely. And let us know, guys, if you want us to do more streams like this where we get people like Neel on, or maybe next time Neel does a video, we can do a live stream instead, so you guys can ask all your questions you have for him, because that's a common trend every time you make a video, mate, that people have millions of questions to ask. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. Like I said, please go start a free week trial of Trademate if you want to give it a go. There's no what's the word? There's no trickery involved. There's no credit card or anything like that. You can just go start a free week trial and see how you go. That's how I started as well. I just did the week trial and then kind of went from there. So
yeah. All right, cool, mate. Thanks for coming along, and maybe we'll catch up very, very soon.
Cheers, Alex. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Right. See you guys. I'm going to play a little outro video for you if it works this time. So we'll see how we go. See you later. Outro video. It's not going to work, is it? Oh, it's just not working for me today. All right, we'll call it quits. See you guys.